I would never just continue to give my team feedback and never ask them to give me feedback. You're a leader and you're thinking, I need to give this person feedback. I just don't know how to set it up. There's two ways of doing it depending on where you are in the relationship together. If I'm not comfortable with you, Nina, I might say to you as my team member, here's what I'm working on. Would you give me feedback on that? Most likely they'll say yes. That just opened up the door. What do you want feedback on? What is it about your communication, your verbal, your nonverbal communication you really want feedback on?
You might have heard of a charity television marathon called a telethon. Let me tell you about a not-for-profit podcast marathon called Podcastathon. Manage Self-Lead Others is part of the 2025 Podcastathon. From March 15 to 21, 2025, thousands of podcasts release a special episode simultaneously for a charity of their choice as part of a worldwide charity event. Objective: to raise awareness for countless causes. This episode of Manage Self-Lead Others is dedicated to Australian-based Action for Dolphins who advocate dolphin protection. Action for Dolphins work to change laws, educate the public and promote institutional change leading to safer, healthier lives for dolphins. Dolphins are sometimes called the humans of the sea because of their intelligence, social behaviours and apparent ability to experience emotions. Action for Dolphins promotes awareness of the trafficking of dolphins into captivity, slaughter of dolphins for food. They advocate for marine protected areas. You can donate and join their mailing list at afd.org.au/join-mailing-list. This episode is all about influence and executive presence. Leaders often stop short of reaching their maximum professional success because they fail to recognise how others perceive them. They blindly believe the skills that created success so far are enough to propel them forward. Through years of exclusive research, Stacey Hanke cultivated strategies to capture attention, connect with listeners, and move people to action. Stacey Hanke's influence strategies help leaders share clear, concise messages, conveying confidence and credibility, earn trust, and make an impact no matter the culture. Stacey Hanke is a CPAE and Hall of Fame speaker, and let me tell you people, that is a big deal. CPAE stands for Council of Peers Award for Excellence, a lifetime award given by the National Speakers Association to recognise professional speakers who have reached the pinnacle of their career. Welcome, Stacey Hanke. Let me just read from your intro, which I said earlier. Leaders often stop short of reaching their maximum professional success because they fail to recognise how others perceive them. They blindly believe the skills that created success so far are enough to propel them forward, especially in this day of massive change, AI, and they think, well, you know, I'm in the C-suite. I just keep doing what I've always been doing. So. Right. What's wrong with that, and what do they need to do differently?
Right. To answer both those questions, what's wrong with it and what do they do differently? The greatest step that we can all take today to elevate our influence is the vulnerability to have courage by seeing ourselves, hearing ourselves through the eyes and ears of our listeners. We continue to grow in the corporate world, those that choose to do so, and you'll get to a point where people tell you what you want to hear, which is really fake feedback. Great, nice job, that's good. We never get the feedback, or we don't know how to ask for it. So many times when we're doing either sales calls or if I'm mentoring an executive, especially when I'm mentoring an executive and I start giving them really honest feedback of what really comes across when they communicate rather than what they believe to be true, right? We can't go off our feeling. They will always say to me, well, no one's ever said this to me before. Well, who's going to tell the CEO you are constantly darting your eyes or you take too long to get to the point? And that is the very first step, whether you're a leader or not. I mean, I think we're all leaders in some capacity in our personal and professional lives. You have to see yourself. The biggest mistake, though, that we make is we just assume how we feel, and our LinkedIn profile, our years of experience and credentials determines how much influence we have, which is completely false.
And also from my experience and reading as well, leaders will make decisions with the best of intentions, assuming that their team members will understand that they've got their, the best intentions in mind. And then they're expecting their team to be mind readers. And in fact, it can give a different perception.
Yeah.
Completely.
That's what happens too, is that different perception. I literally had a call today. We do these follow-up calls when my team goes in and does workshops with clients. Two of the leaders were on the call, and we just wanted to get feedback, give them accountability, next steps, how to keep the gain and keep your team moving forward. And we forget that how we show up here will either communicate a positive personal brand or it starts to jeopardize it. And then we elevate this, Nina. And when I say the idea of consistency Monday to Monday will determine your level of influence, it's how you see me showing up right now is how I would show up with you if we sat down for lunch or coffee. And that's one of the biggest differences I'm seeing with those that have consistent influence and those that don't. They'll show up one way virtual, show up another way in person, or either via social media. I mean, that's another format where your brand is being communicated, or even in an email. Some of my CEOs will send me a text message and it's all capital letters. And there's no punctuation. And we've just become really, is lazy too strong of a word? We've just become too lazy with once we all went virtual. And I keep thinking, but this is still your brand. You still have an opportunity to present who you are.
And it's your personal brand too. I mean, you're right. Employed by an organization, but you have a personal brand and personal reputation that you can enhance, because most people, especially if they're going up the ladder, want to continue going. And even if they don't go up the ladder to the top of their current organization, they're looking, well, sideways, where can I go to grow and to achieve my true destiny?
Exactly. I want to tap into something you had made a comment about executive presence. I'll always tell individuals that, especially here or even in person, you have to be present to have executive presence.
Yes.
So if you're here and you're kind of multitasking over here, or, those emails are coming in, or even worse, we've been virtual for 4 years, turn on your camera. And when we don't turn on our camera, I'm thinking that there's no way you have executive presence if you can't show up fully as if you were in person.
I so agree with you. And it's respect for the person leading the meeting to actually be present with your camera, unless there's a specific reason, maybe you've had dental surgery or something. But
right.
But generally, I think it shows respect for everybody present, for everybody to have their camera on. So that's all about the virtual presentation. Look, getting back to what you said before about having vulnerability, look, I've employed people in the past who were really quite passive aggressive, and even in a one-on-one, they would have such a superior tone. Looking back now, I realise all I had to do was call out, by the way, the tone of your voice is a little bit interesting. I'm getting the feeling, I'm getting a funny feeling. Like, I realise now you can actually say that, because in the past I went, how could I complain about a tone of voice? But now I know you can.
Right. And that you're bringing up something so important, Nina. When we are called by a company, whether it's to come keynote or to mentor, and they'll ask us, well, how do you prove ROI, return on investment? And I always say it's going to be through the feedback that we give. And sometimes their radar goes on, depending on what part of the world they're located in, by the way, and they'll say things like, well, our leaders have worked hard to be in this position. Be careful with the feedback you give. And then I'll go on to explain, well, here's what the feedback really is, though. And if you're asking for feedback, first, if you want feedback on yourself, always prepare for the feedback. For example, before we start recording today, and if I wanted feedback from you afterwards, I might have said, here's what I'm working on. Would you watch for that? But the more specific you can be, then after we get done recording here, Nina, you quickly give me feedback. I have tons of these Post-it notes hanging up in front of me right now, and it's just feedback that my coaches and my accountability partners give me. It's ask for that feedback. Now, if it's the other way around, say you're a leader and you're thinking, I need to give this person feedback, I just don't know how to set it up. There's 2 ways of doing it depending on where you are in the relationship together. If I'm not comfortable with you, Nina, I might say to you as my team member, here's what I'm working on. Would you give me feedback on that? Most likely they'll say yes. That just opened up the door. What do you want feedback on? What is it about your communication, your verbal, your nonverbal communication you really want feedback on?
So you ask them the question as well, so it's mutual.
Yes.
Ah, yes.
Because, I look at my team, I would never just continue to give my team feedback and never ask them to give me feedback. And it really creates what we've done here in my company is we really created this culture of open feedback. Sometimes, it can be a little harsh, but here's the idea of feedback. After you receive it, Nina, you still will decide what you want to do with it.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Because you have to consider the source, and sometimes is the source coming from a pure source?
Right.
Is there ego? Is there sarcasm? Are they, some people, their modus operandi is sarcasm. And so can you really trust their feedback?
I might say to you, Nina, what specific feedback have you received in the past on how you deliver a message? And then I listen, I'm really being mindful and listening to some of the key points you're listing, because your key points are going to create my next question. I might then go, or I might start with the conversation. What specifically do you want to improve on when it comes to your messaging?
Well, okay, so a company decides that they're going to create a culture of peer-to-peer feedback and manager direct report feedback. You have to catch people doing things right and give them praise and recognition as often as looking for gaps to give feedback. Is that right? So there's a kind of a plus minus emotional bank account thing happening.
Yeah. When I give feedback, I'm always really focusing on, at this point, I've already had the conversation of what is your personal brand? How do you want to come across? What reputation do you want to precede you? And where do you want to go? I got to be really clear about that, because now my feedback is going to make sure it's targeted for your current brand, the expectations that you have, where do you want to grow that influence to? And that way, when I say to you, well, listen to the difference. If I said to you, Nina, I love the way that you've got passion and energy, but what we really need to work on now is your presence. And the word but just kind of slapped you in the face, right?
Oh, yes.
You forgot everything I just said. So instead it is, here's what works for you that matches your brand. It's your energy, your passion that comes through your tone and facial expressions. If you want to really elevate that, now we're going to dive deeper into how that message is laid out. Just an example. But, if it's someone as a leader, I think it really is your responsibility to be there to guide them, but to be super, super clear. Now, here's a way I think we need to elevate as leaders, how we need to elevate the feedback we give to others. You have to first figure out your brand and how you want to lead. And when it comes to influence, what do you want? Mm. And if that as a leader is not figured out, I think there is a gap with feedback and holding their teams accountable.
Well, when they're deciding on how they want to be a leader, are they connecting with some key attributes, maybe key words that they can then, aim for, be their goal, be their mantra, if you like?
Yes. This is something that we've created in Influence Elevated, this third book. The first thing I always say to individuals is, when it comes to influence, fill in the sentence. I want, what is it? Got to figure that out first. Mm-hmm. And then in the Influence Elevated book, we have a self-assessment. And it's quick, it's easy. When I took it took me 4 minutes to take it. It's super easy. But the result is, what kind of leader are you when it comes to influence? I think you just have to first figure out what kind of leader you are around influence. From there, then you can really start saying, well, here's my baseline, but maybe I want to elevate how I'm coming across, how I'm giving feedback, accountability, whatever it might be. Because, keep in mind, Nina, influence is such a big topic.
Oh, but if absolutely, you could,
just right, think of influence as two things: your body language, how you deliver, how you show up. And number two, it's the messaging. Is the message clear, concise, And does it resonate with whatever lane your listener is in? And if those two are consistent, you increase the likelihood that you're consistently communicating with influence.
Now, I do want to talk about body language in a moment, but before we do, the word feedback itself can be a little bit charged, a bit of a trigger. When you're asking somebody for feedback, is there a different word you can use?
You could. I'm thinking I use feedback a lot, but if the first word that comes back is advice, what can I do differently to give you more value? What can I do
Yes.
differently so
I'm
that I come
interested in your
across much more-
perspective. Perspective could work.
There you go. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because I
Yes,
just
that's
find
good
the word
feedback.
can I speak to you? I want to give you some feedback, or I want you to give me some feedback. It's just my
Could
stomach
be
doesn't
harsh.
flip.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think there's so many ways of doing it. Specifically, if you say to someone, I want to make sure that I communicate clearly. Where am I missing that? Where did I come across clearly? And that again is good. It's setting it up for, here's what I want feedback on. What did you think? Where did I miss the boat?
And that would be a one-on-one conversation, private. And also
Yes.
straight after a meeting, whether it be online or in person, would be ideal because you'd be picking up on the nonverbal responses to new
Right.
information. If you're the meeting leader, there's a great opportunity there to say, well, when we were talking about this new initiative, I noticed, your facial expressions seem to indicate you might have a few questions. I'm curious to know more about that, or something like that.
Right. Yes, exactly. And this is just taking time to think through, either if you're the one that's giving the feedback, thinking about your listener. Because I think about the feedback I give to those that I mentor, it's always a little different based on their style, their personality. How do they respond to feedback? I've got clients that just say, lay it on really heavy. Just tell me how it is. No sugarcoating. And then I've got others I can tell that, no, I've got to kind of ease my way into it when they're ready.
So let's get into body language because we've got a few more minutes left. Look, in my experience, I've been working with teams where it became obvious that when the manager was giving instruction or direction, they had their hands on their hips, and that sends such a terrible message. But have you got other examples like that?
Oh my goodness. We teach a lot of skills around body language, think delivery skills. When we talk about posture, posture is a confidence skill. What we have done over the years through our research is we'll tie the behavior to an actual adjective, and that adjective ties to your personal brand. If you want to convey confidence, even without saying a word, the whole idea is to be as open as possible. Right. So that's a lot different that whether I'm here and this will start to take control, or if I'm standing and this starts to take control, or that, we've seen it all, right? Or hands in the pockets. What we recommend is whether I'm sitting, which I am today, is I'm open. I want to own that conversation. Now, why that's important? We also talk about the power of gestures. When gestures have purpose, they communicate impact, credibility. They increase what people remember and how long they retain it.
Right.
So what I do is if I'm open, whether I'm standing or seated, now I can gesture with a lot of variety. I can create visuals around my words. I'm exaggerating right now so your followers can pick
that's
up on
always
this.
really good. Yeah.
Right. The other one that's really, really critical is the only skill that conveys trust, and that's what you do with your eyes. Now, you may know it as eye contact. We have elevated that concept. We refer to as eye connection, which means only speak when you see eyes. In this case, only speak when I see the camera, right? But what happens a lot, Nina, is we're in these meetings, especially virtually now, and we're so distracted. And what happens is if I don't have focus in my eyes, I'm not focused in my thoughts, I'll lack brevity, I start to get long-winded. Yes. And you miss the opportunity of reading your listener if you're speaking, right? But not looking at them.
All right, just to finish up on, you've got a really good chapter on stories. So what sort of stories, and how can a senior leader, middle manager bring them in and use them?
one thing I always recommend, I'm not one where I'm sitting here with you and I can just pull stories out of midair. I have numerous journals on my desk where anytime my nieces say something funny, or I might be in the airplane or airport, I'll jot down things I see, or news reports, wherever it is. And what I'll do is, or personal experience, people want to communicate with empathy. They want you to communicate with empathy. And a great way to do that is to pull them in with a story, tie an experience around with it. Now,
and more
there's an
importantly,
art to
Stacey,
it.
you're saying keep a story journal, which is exactly what I do, because I've got lists of stories. Because when I'm thinking about, I want to highlight a story, I've got my list to refer back to. And sometimes I'll even think of a fresh story from my life and I'll write it down, because I go, oh, there's another story I forgot about.
Yeah, that's right. So you have to get the ideas down. And from there, when all these ideas are down, you're taking a step back and thinking about, what is the main point I want to make? You've got to have the outcome. And what is important for them to hear to get to the outcome based on what I know of my listeners. Once you do that, step 3, I always deliver my stories to either my husband, my nieces, my friends who have no idea what I'm trying to do. And if they don't get it, I'm not ready to tell it yet.
Well, look, our time has come to an end, and I'm finding this absolutely fascinating, Stacey. So thank you so much. And well, how do people find you if they do want to work with you? And you've got a whole team. You've got a big team that works around the world. Yes.
I want to give a complimentary ebook to my previous book, Influence Redefined, which is a great way to start. You almost need that book before you can read the next one that's coming out next week. Otherwise, on our website, we are all social media. So it's Stacey with an EY, HANKEINC.com.
Yes, lovely. Well, it'll be in the show notes, and thank you for the freebie. So
you're welcome.
Yeah, we'll put the link to that. Wonderful meeting you, Stacey.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
This episode, we were speaking with Stacey Hanke about elevating your executive presence through communicating through influence. You'll find Stacey Hanke at staceyhanke.com, and her book, Influence Elevated, available where all good books are available, including Amazon. And my name is Nina Sunday. This is the Manage Self Lead Others podcast. Thanks for listening. Remember to subscribe to the video versions on our YouTube channel, or you can watch the video versions on Spotify, and share this episode with 5 other people in your team, because I would say of all the episodes that we do, this is definitely a standout episode about accountability, feedback, body language, and all good things that make teams effective. And that's our purpose, elevating team culture. So until next time, bye for now.
Nina Sunday CSP is on a mission to help leaders transform culture. Nina Sunday travels from Brisbane, Australia to facilitate half-day or full-day workshops at your location anywhere across Australia. For a list of Nina's topics around leading people, productivity and communication, go to brainpowertraining.com.au/signature programs to request a tailored proposal. To book Nina Sunday CSP to speak at your conference in Australia, New Zealand, Asia, or internationally, head to ninasunday.com for details.